to the Wrestle Havoc Podcast on YouTube, where we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. We talk all that goes on in the realm of WWE and AEW every week. And now, here's your host, the one that will give you a reality check on pro wrestling, Flamin' Ricky DeReyes. This is the Wrestle Havoc Podcast.
The biggest wrestling show of all time, the biggest event in wrestling history, comes to fruition at Wembley Stadium, and it's safe to say AEW has made history. What is up, everybody? It is Flamin' Ricky DeReyes right here on the Wrestle Havoc Podcast, here to review AEW All in London 2023, of course, at Wembley Stadium. 81,000 strong in attendance for this event. This event will go down as one of the biggest wrestling shows of all time. And I am not kidding when I say that, and I am not saying that because a lot of other people are saying that. I'm saying that because it is factual information, and I'm also saying that because it is very true. WWE has had a stranglehold on the wrestling market for well over 20 years. You could say TNA was a number 2 company, because they were, at the time, during their heyday, they were the number 2. But if you compare TNA to where AEW is at this point, AEW has reached in a level that not even WCW could reach. And no, I am not counting Collision in Korea because, of course, Collision in Korea had a forced attendance on that show. WCW's highest paid attendance, besides Collision in Korea, was, I believe, the July 1998 episode of Nitro at the Georgia Dome, where it was roughly at least 30 to 40,000 people at that venue to witness Goldberg dethrone Hollywood Hulk Hogan for the WCW title. That was their largest attendance. TNA, they would go to these venues, and their venues would be half full. They went to the Alamo Dome, I remember, for Lockdown 2013, where the main event was Bully Ray versus Jeff Hardy for the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. It was at the Alamo Dome. This is the same venue that this year's Royal Rumble took place. That show, if you looked at the map of the seating chart of that particular show, Lockdown 2013, literally, this was this entire border that you see around me watching this video on YouTube. One corner of the entire Alamo Dome was the entire event. The rest was tarped off. So, honestly, TNA did not know what to do with their attendance at all. Their attendance was dog shit. They never reached the heights that AEW has. TNA at the time was known as the fastest growing wrestling company in the world. AEW now took that throne, and they are now the fastest growing wrestling organization in the world. 5 years ago, Dave Meltzer, or somebody asked Dave Meltzer on Twitter, can Ring of Honor or any other wrestling company besides WWE could sell out a 10,000-seat arena? And Dave Meltzer was like, not anytime soon. And then all of a sudden, Cody Rhodes from The Elite, who at the time, The Elite was white hot. 2017 and 2018, they were the hottest thing in the industry. You could not debate that whatsoever. Cody was like, I'll take that bet, Dave. And they announced the very first All In. At the time, people were like, you cannot sell 10,000 seats. It hasn't been done in almost 20 years. Fast forward 5 years later. Wrestling is now a weekly thing once again on the Turner Networks. We got wrestling on TNT and TBS. Who would have thought? And now we have All In at Wembley Stadium with 81,000 people in attendance, paid attendance to be exact. This show was amazing. All In will go down as one of the best shows, not only of 2023, but one of the best shows of all time, period. All In, if you really want to sum it up in one simple statement, All In is AEW's answer to WrestleMania. It really is, because the spectacle of the entire show, the production, everything about this was high tech. Everything was literally just all over the place in a good way. The show felt like a big deal. Say what you want about the build for the show, and yes, there's a lot of criticism when it regards to the build for this show. But the show itself, the in-ring quality, the matches that we saw, the storytelling that was involved in this show, the entrances alone, bro. The music. Yes, the music that was played on this show. This show felt like a big deal, and this is by far AEW's biggest show that they have ever done. This show was so good, to be exact, that by the end of the show, Wembley was like, hey, this show is absolutely amazing. We want you for next year. And it has been officially announced. All In will be returning to Wembley Stadium next year. This show was nothing but a success. The detractors on the internet, when this show was first announced, was they can't sell 80,000 seats or 90,000 seats because Wembley is a 90,000 seat stadium. People were saying you barely can get 30K. A lot of people were saying, you could only get maybe 20K to 30K, and that's not even a lot for a show like All In at Wembley Stadium. When the pre-sale for this show happened, roughly, I believe, 30,000 seats were already sold in the pre-sale. That was only on the pre-sale alone. So you can tell there was a lot of demand for this show. And then as the weeks and months went by, tickets were selling fast, and not one match was announced. Not one match was announced. You can say, oh, it's the UK, so they're craving for wrestling. Yeah, you can say that. But the UK market, yes, they're striving for wrestling, but primarily they were striving for AEW wrestling. Every time when WWE goes there, they will get an immediate sellout. But the UK is very similar to in the United States, where they were striving for an alternative. And AEW is that alternative. All In was nothing but a success. I can't say really anything bad about this show. Was this show perfect? No, it was not perfect. There were some duds on this show, which I'll talk about, and there were some things that I didn't like. But that didn't, make me immediately hate this show. No, this show, from top to bottom, was absolutely phenomenal. A large portion of that had to do with the production and the spectacle of everything, and a large portion of that had to do with the in-ring work, and also just the atmosphere of everything, the crowd. The crowd reaction in London. You guys, I've said this about Cardiff for Clash at the Castle, and I said this about Money in the Bank. And I've said this about any other city that WWE has gone to this year for PLEs. For example, Puerto Rico for Backlash, also Montreal for the Elimination Chamber. These types of crowds are the types of crowds that you would want in a wrestling show. And I said this in the Money in the Bank review. This, London is a crowd that is just striving for wrestling. If anything, yes, we all know right now wrestling is hot. If you're denying that wrestling is hot, clearly something's fucking wrong with you. Wrestling at this point is hot. Could I say we're in a boom period? Honestly, I don't think so. But wrestling right now at this current state is hot. In the U.S., wrestling is hotter. It's hotter than it has ever been in the last 20 years. But in the U.K., I could make the argument that wrestling is way hotter in the U.K. than it is right here in the States. You can tell by the audience and the crowd right here at All In. This show was by far one of the best shows that AEW has produced, and by far the biggest show that AEW has ever produced. All In was a success. All In was phenomenal. And at the end of the day, All In was AEW's answer to WrestleMania. They have found their WrestleMania, and that was All In. Because people need to understand, All In is not just a name. All In is not just a catchphrase. All In is a movement. It's a movement to bring the wrestling community together. You could say that about WrestleMania weekend. And yes, WrestleMania brings the wrestling community together, but there's something about All In and the spirit of All In that is just there. Cody Rhodes talked about this in the Ariel Helwani show a couple of months ago. If you don't have that spirit of All In, what are you doing here? AEW had that spirit on this show. All In was not just the show name, but the show itself showed that everybody was all in. Those are my initial thoughts for All In. Of course, this is Flamin' Ricky DeRays, right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, here to review AEW All In 2023, coming to us from Wembley. Yes, Wembley. You know how a lot of the detractors say, oh, but Wembley. Yes, Wembley Stadium. This show is fucking awesome. Of course, It's right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And, as the friggin' referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. Of course, we're going to be talking about all these matches that went down for All In. We're going to be talking about CM Punk. We're going to be talking about CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho, FTR versus the Young Bucks. The main event with Adam Cole taking on MJF for the AEW World Championship. Probably one of the best main events that AEW has ever produced. If you want to talk about story, you got Adam Cole versus MJF. And from what it looks like right now, those two guys are still on the same page, and they're pulling a Sami Zayn in which you thought some bullshit was going to happen, kind of similar to what we thought last year at Survivor Series with War Games and Sami Zayn. But instead of whacking one of the two guys, they just full on went with the story and continued on the story further on down the line. Because right now, the MJF and Adam Cole story is the hottest story in AEW right now. And it's paying off very, very, very well. If you were to tell me a couple of months ago, right as soon as All In was announced and tickets were going on sale, that the main event was going to be Adam Cole versus MJF, I'd probably look at you and be like, huh? For a show like All In, trust me, I love Adam Cole. I'm a big fan of MJF. But those guys main eventing Wembley? Huh? But AEW, throughout the past couple of months, made the storyline with Adam Cole and MJF work so well. And it has paid off tremendously. And the story continues on after this show. And Adam Cole and MJF are on the same page. So we're going to be talking about this show and much more right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast. If you guys had missed the SmackDown review, the link will be in the description below. I talk about remembering the life of Bray Wyatt, who unfortunately passed away. We talk about the life of Bray Wyatt and also the SmackDown show as a whole, which was not only a tribute for Bray Wyatt, but also a tribute for Terry Funk. So if you guys haven't checked out the SmackDown review, the link will be in the description below. All right, let's talk about All In at Wembley Stadium. The show kicks off with the 0 Hour. I'm only going to be talking about two matches on the 0 Hour. And from those matches, it is, of course, MJF versus Aussie Open, and, of course, Jack Perry versus Hook for the FTW title. We're going to kick off with Aussie Open versus MJF and Adam Cole for the Ring of Honor tag team titles. I know there was a lot of mixed reactions as to why MJF and Adam Cole are going, of all things, after the Ring of Honor tag team titles, but the thing about it is Adam Cole at least explained why they're going after the Ring of Honor tag team titles because of the fact that Adam Cole has a lot of history with Ring of Honor. MJF, of course, he's the type of guy that's like, Ring of Honor, what the fuck is that? Who gives a shit? But who cares? He still went with it. I actually supported the idea of Adam Cole and MJF taking on Aussie Open for the ROH tag titles at the pre-show. I think that made total sense, and honestly, if you look at it from a business perspective, it makes total sense as well. Because with Adam Cole and MJF wrestling not only in the main event, but also wrestling on the pre-show of the show, you're really making this a big deal, and you're making the 0 Hour a big deal. For the first time in a long time, I actually tuned into a fucking match at a pre-show, of all things. And this match, bro, when it comes to the business side of things, if you really think about it, seeing MJF wrestle with Adam Cole on a pre-show, you're guaranteed to get way more pay-per-view buys depending on the outcome of this particular match leading into the main event, that being Adam Cole versus MJF for the AEW World title. But nonetheless, this match was great. Aussie Open is one of the best tag teams in the world, period. Adam Cole and MJF are by far the best duo right now in professional wrestling. And this match was off the fucking charts. You guys in London, for a match at the pre-show, were going absolutely crazy. So Aussie Open start immediately with the attack. They're in control throughout the beginning of the match. MJF tries to set up the kangaroo kick. Of course, they got a double clothesline over, and now they're getting a kangaroo kick over. But he doesn't get the kangaroo kick just yet. And we get a bunch of kangaroo kick chants by the crowd. MJF makes the tag. Actually, no. I believe it was Adam Cole that made the tag. We get a clothesline by Cole. After that, we get a pump kick by Cole. Cole then riles up the crowd. We get a backstabber on Fletcher by Adam Cole. We get a cover by Cole and a near fall. Cole is on the top. He tries to go for the Panama Sunrise, but he ends up missing. Fletcher then runs into a super kick by Adam Cole. At this point, the crowd is on their feet. What happens after that? They point at each other, that being Adam Cole and MJF, screaming double clothesline, with the crowd screaming double clothesline with them. MJF tags in, but what happens is Davis drags Fletcher to the outside. At this point, Aussie opens on the outside. Cole wants MJF to make a dive, to go for a tope. MJF, of course, is scared because MJF is not reckless like all these other indie schmucks, says MJF. So he is scared. MJF runs the ropes, but then Cole, who is on the ropes, he was on the rope, sitting on the middle rope, so he could give MJF space to do that particular tope spot. What happens is one of the members of Aussie Open take out Adam Cole. So Aussie Open at this point regain control in the match. Aussie Open then hit the Aussie Arrow on MJF. We get a cover by Aussie Open and a near fall. Aussie Open then knock each other down by accident by, of course, MJF. MJF sets up and riles up the crowd. The crowd is up on their feet, does the kangaroo pose, and hits the fucking kangaroo kick, which is basically a double leg drop kick. That's what it basically is. He hits the kangaroo kick, and I swear to God, the crowd went dog shit for that kangaroo kick spot. Yeah, a kangaroo kick, one of the most simplest moves and one of the dumbest moves in the history of wrestling. That got so over with the audience. I talked about this weeks ago on the Dynamite review. Watch a kangaroo kick get so over. That shit's going to get so over with the audience, and look what it did. It's over. They got a double clothesline over, and they got a kangaroo kick over. If that doesn't scream investment, then I do not know what will. That was fucking awesome. The crowd is up on their feet. Then we get a double clothesline, both pointing at each other, screaming double clothesline, and they finally hit the double clothesline, and we get a cover, and Adam Cole and MJF get the 1-2-3, and they are your new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. MJF is now a double champion. MJF is now a double champion. Adam Cole is now a tag team champion. What are my thoughts on this 0 hour match? This was great. What I liked about this match is that everybody expected, and this is really the whole moral of the story, basically you would expect something, but if anything, the opposite happens of what you expect. That is the beauty of this MJF and Adam Cole storyline. You expect something, but you get the opposite of what you expect. And that is exactly what we saw in this 0 hour pre-show match. We all thought there was going to be inner tension between MJF and Adam Cole. But, if anything, none of that happened. None of that happened whatsoever. If anything, they grew stronger as best friends and a team by winning the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. But the real question was, what was going to happen in the main event? Nothing in this match screamed, oh yeah, this guy's going to turn on this guy. But as we'll see in the main event, both of them tried to pull some heel tactics, and they couldn't get themselves to do it. But we'll talk about that later on. But the beauty of this whole match and story is the unpredictability nature. I talk about the unpredictability nature when it comes to the bloodline. But this is on another level. Because MJF turning on Adam Cole would be pretty obvious, right? Because we all know how MJF is. He touts himself as the devil. And the devil, you know, is cunning. He loves tricking people. He would make deals with you, but all of a sudden, he'd do the opposite. And he'd turn your back on you. That's the devil. That's MJF. And you would immediately think MJF is going to turn on Adam Cole. But for the past couple of weeks on television, they've been teasing also Adam Cole possibly turning on MJF. If anything, this past Wednesday on Dynamite, Adam Cole felt like in the same position that Stone Cold Steve Austin was in the build-up to the match against The Rock at WrestleMania 17, where Adam Cole was starting to lash out and he just started to get really desperate on wanting to win the AEW World Championship. So even if the outcome is MJF turning, it's going to be a scenario where it's going to be very, very, very unexpected, and the payoff is going to be absolutely huge because you do not know who's going to turn on who. Both of them teased turning on each other, but they couldn't get themselves to do it. That's what makes this whole storyline just absolutely amazing. Story-driven, storylines that are driven by emotion and storylines that are driven by unpredictability are the ones that succeed the most. The ones that are driven by emotion and the ones that are driven by unpredictability are the ones that succeed the most. That's just the cold, hard nature. And honestly, this match was fucking phenomenal. So MJF and Adam Cole are your new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. Moving on, we got Hook taking on Jack Perry for the FTW Championship. This match had a lot of controversy in it. I'm not going to talk a lot about this match, but what happened, one of the spots in the match, we had a spot where I believe it was Hook T-boning Jack Perry on the top of a limo on the windshield. Before that, we had Jungle Boy do a Rolling Thunder. Jack later on in the match has a trash can and he hits it on the head of Hook. He places it on the top of Hook, but then Jack goes to the top. He ends up hitting a moonsault, but then misses. Hook ends up hitting a lariat, but then Hook hits a trash can onto the head of Jack Perry. And then he applies the red rum. Jack taps out, and Hook wins back the FTW Championship. Honestly, when it comes to this match, it was not a bad match, and it was pretty much expected that Hook was going to be regaining the FTW Championship. But this match had nothing but controversy for one spot written all over it. And that was the spot where Jack Perry got hit and got basically driven on the glass in the windshield on the limo. And later on after that, what happened was that Jack Perry went to the camera and he said, "If that's real glass, cry me a river." We didn't all think about that for nothing, but there were starting to be reports of a physical altercation between Jack Perry and CM Punk, in which I will talk about immediately after I go through the CM Punk and Samoa Joe match. All right, moving on. We got the main card. We got CM Punk versus Samoa Joe for the Real World Championship. Of course, CM Punk is holding the championship that he won against Jon Moxley last year at All Out. And, of course, you guys know what happened there. The brawl-out situation, he got suspended, and he also had an injury, so he was out for a long-ass period of time. And now CM Punk is back with his AEW World Championship that he never lost, but he spray-painted the main plate with a black X, and now he's calling it the Real World Championship. CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, you guys know the story, is a feud that I've always wanted to see play out in AEW because of the history that CM Punk and Samoa Joe had. I loved what they did in the first match that they did, back in a couple of weeks ago on Collision, which was, I believe, the semifinals of the Owen Hart Cup tournament. That was a phenomenal match, and we had CM Punk escape Samoa Joe by rolling him up, and CM Punk never beat Samoa Joe up until that point. And now, of course, Samoa Joe, after the match, they shook hands, and then he applied the sleeper on him, and now it led us to this match, basically. And, of course, in the build-up to this match, CM Punk was wearing a gold suit, and he hit the GTS on Samoa Joe. You guys get the story. We have this match as the opening match for All In. Overall thoughts on this match, this was a really, really, really good match. I enjoyed this opening match. CM Punk looked great. Samoa Joe was really the star of this whole match. You would honestly think CM Punk was the star of this whole match, but really Samoa Joe was the star of this whole match, man. Samoa Joe, the crowd in London absolutely loved Samoa Joe. Of course, CM Punk, and it's a common occurrence throughout the majority of CM Punk's return. CM Punk, in any city that he goes to, he gets that mixed reaction by the crowd. One city he'd get a very positive reaction, for example, like Chicago, but in another city he'd get a very, very, very negative reaction. I can remember me being at the Prudential Center for AEW Collision a couple of weeks ago, and I remember CM Punk coming out, and my section was booing the shit out of CM Punk. There was other areas in the arena that were cheering for CM Punk. So CM Punk is definitely getting that mixed reaction, and CM Punk definitely got that mixed reaction at Wembley Stadium in London. And what was funny was that there was a sign that was definitely shown on television, and man, these UK fans are funny as shit. That sign said, "The best in the world, CM Punk, the best in the world at being a bitch." I don't know about you guys, but I laughed my ass off when I saw that. I really did laugh my ass off. All right, let's go through the match. All right, both lock up. Joe misses a chop. Both lock up once again, but then we get a chop by Punk in the corner. Punk goes for another chop, but then Punk keeps ducking Joe's chops. We then get a side headlock by Punk, but then Joe picks him up and drops him down, but then Punk still has the side headlock applied. Of course, throughout the history of the feud, throughout the past 20 years of CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, The side headlock played a very, very, very big role in the story of the match because, of course, the story was CM Punk could never beat Samoa Joe. And throughout all the matches, he tries to apply the side headlock so he can really slow down Samoa Joe. So he's doing the same technique as he did in all the other previous matches that he wrestled Samoa Joe in. So he applies the side headlock. Joe drags Punk onto the apron, but then he ends up hitting an overhand chop. Joe then goes for a series of chops on the outside. Punk runs into the ring, but then Joe comes back. After that, Punk fights off Joe. Joe goes for repeated rights. We get a chop by Joe. Punk at this point is hanging on the middle rope, right? So he's sitting on the middle rope and he's hanging from the ropes. Later on, Punk ends up going for a Hurricane Rana. Joe gets taken to the outside, but then Punk goes over the rope onto the outside, but Joe walks off. So it looked like he tried to go for a crossbody over the top rope. Joe does his signature walk-off. Classic Samoa Joe, or as Michael Cole would say on commentary, vintage Samoa Joe. Joe goes for a chop, and then he drives his boot onto the barricade. Joe then gets his shoulder sent onto the post. Then after that, Punk is on the apron. He tries to go for the Hurricane Rana, but then Punk gets caught and gets driven through the front of the announce table, which looked fucking painful as hell. Literally, his head landed through the announce table. At this point, Punk is busted open. We get repeated right hands onto the head of Punk. Once we're back into the ring, Joe is in control. The crowd is on their feet. Punk runs into an elbow by Samoa Joe, but then we get a cover by Joe and a near fall. Joe continues to be in control, but then Punk fights back with a series of body shots. We then get a back elbow by Joe, but he follows up with an enziguri into the corner. We get an inverted atomic drop by Joe. We get a boot by Joe, and then he ends up hitting a senton. After that, we get a cover by Joe and a near fall, but then Joe goes for a series of chops. He takes Punk to the top, but then he picks up Punk for the Muscle Buster attempt, but Punk manages to escape the Muscle Buster. Punk goes for the roundhouse kick, taking Joe down. We then get a series of shoulder tackles by Punk. Those shoulder tackles paying tribute to John Cena. Yes, John Cena, Mr. You Can't See Me. I can't see him at all. He's literally invisible all over this fucking house. So what happens is Punk goes for those shoulder tackles like John Cena and he slams him down. Punk then goes for the Hulk Hogan, taunt. He was kind of, posing like Hulk Hogan. And he's been doing that in his matches recently, kind of acting like Hulk Hogan. And what was funny, he goes for the leg drop, right? And we get a cover, and Joe goes for the immediate kick out at 1. And what happens is now Joe, instead of Punk imitating Hulk Hogan, Joe is now imitating Hulk Hogan, with CM Punk going for repeated right hands, with Joe no-selling those right hands. And then he points at CM Punk and does the no, 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 and the crowd is just like, oh shit, you fucked up. So what happened after that is that Joe goes for a power slam. And after that, we get a cover and a near fall. He applies the arm bar. We get another cover and a kick out. We get a knee by Punk caught into a power bomb by Joe. We get a cover and a kick out as well. Joe then transitions into the STF submission. Punk tries to go for the roll-up, but we get another near fall. Then Punk once again goes for the roundhouse kick. Punk tries to go for the spinning toe hold. We get a cover and by Joe and a near fall. After that, Punk tries to go for the running knee, but he got caught into a Uranagi in the corner. Joe takes Punk up. We get a chop by Joe. Both men are on the top, but then Punk bites the head of Joe. Punk then grabs Joe, and he ends up hitting the Pepsi Plunge. We haven't seen that in any one of his matches, I believe. So he ends up hitting the Pepsi Plunge. Punk goes for the cover. We get a cover. 1, 2, 3. CM Punk defeats Samoa Joe and retains the Real World Championship. Overall thoughts on this match. Number one, I think it was pretty much expected that CM Punk was going to be retaining the Real World Championship because I've always said eventually we're going to be seeing a match between MJF and CM Punk. We're going to be getting that third match at some point. My best prediction and my assumption is that a lot of people were pissed that they wanted to see MJF versus CM Punk at Wembley, which to an extent I would understand. But if you look at it from a storyline perspective, it doesn't make sense because what they're doing with MJF is the same exact story that WWE did with CM Punk immediately after he cut that pipe bomb promo talking about his WWE contract and he's leaving with the WWE Championship. My prediction is that they're going to be doing the exact same thing with MJF and really playing this bidding war of 2024 storyline, but instead of CM Punk doing that, at the end of the day, it's MJF, because the story is CM Punk created the monster that was MJF. That's my prediction right there. But the match itself with Joe and Punk, it was obvious Joe was going to be retaining. There's no fucking way that he was going to lose that real world championship. It's not even a championship that's actually recognized by AEW. It's very weird. It's kind of like the FTW title. The FTW title, even though it's defended in matches, it's not officially recognized by AEW. It's not an official championship. Very similar to the real world championship, but Punk is still defending that title, basically pretending that it is actually an official championship. But nonetheless, this show was a great opener for All In. I really enjoyed this match for what it was. It was a phenomenal match. The atmosphere in the crowd was great. Just the visual of and the history of Samoa Joe and CM Punk, from wrestling in front of 300 to 400 people at, an indie show or a Ring of Honor show back in the early 2000s, to fast forward to 20 years later with them wrestling in front of 81,000 people. It goes to show you that they have definitely come a long way. And honestly, it was great to see. I absolutely loved this match. It was great. Is it their best match? No, but it got the job done. And the crowd, you can tell, the crowd in London absolutely loved this match for what it was. The Hulk Hogan, imitations was phenomenal, not only by Punk, but also by Samoa Joe. I absolutely loved that. The brutality of the situation where Joe just drove Punk through the announce table and Punk was busted open and he was bleeding all over the place. That was a great visual as well. I enjoyed that. But nonetheless, Joe versus Punk got the job done, and it was a great opener for All In at London at Wembley Stadium. Great opening match. Hats off to CM Punk and Samoa Joe. Now, I could easily go on and talk about Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, and Kota Ibushi taking on Jay White, Juice Robinson, and, of course, from the Don Callis family, Konosuke Takeshita. But what happened immediately after this match, if you were a fan watching the show, I assume, and I assume if you were watching AEW, you definitely do check out the dirt sheets, and you are a subscriber to Fightful Select. And this is not free promotion for Fightful Select, but maybe it is. I don't know. But Sean Ross Sapp put out a story immediately. He tweeted out that there was a physical altercation before Punk made his entrance between Jack Perry and CM Punk. Yeah. So we get an update on CM Punk and Jack Perry at the altercation at All In. CM Punk and Jack Perry had an altercation backstage at the All In pay-per-view, and this is according to Fightful Select. Details are few and far in between at the moment, but we have learned that Jack Perry and CM Punk had an altercation shortly before CM Punk went into the ring for his All In match. Jack Perry was drawn right before him and did a spot on the car window and said, "It's real glass, cry me a river." That was a shot at CM Punk, who had a confrontation at the AEW or at an AEW Collision taping this summer over Perry's insistence on using real glass for a spot on the show. We're told Perry wasn't happy about how the situation was relayed publicly by those close to Punk. We have learned the following regarding Punk's side of things, which claims that Jack Perry approached CM Punk backstage and quote-unquote stepped in his face and bumped Punk. Punk was said to be then have pushed Jack Perry, and then Perry allegedly quote-unquote came at Punk and got choked. We haven't heard of a particular kind of choke or who broke things up, but please note there's only one side of the story, and there are more details that will emerge. Miro then has claimed the Punk side of the story was quote-unquote fake and untrue. First off, Miro has nothing to do with the situation, but also Miro is on AEW Collision. Hopefully Miro does not get banned after this. I'll tell you that right now. And other versions allege that Punk threw a punch and that Punk stepped to Perry first. Other accounts claim that Punk initiated things. They exchanged words. Punk got in Perry's face and pie-faced him. Punk allegedly grabbed Perry in a front facelock and it was broken up. PW Insider has reported that Jack Perry was sent away from the venue and CM Punk was still at Wembley for a time. Eventually, Punk was also asked to leave. Wrestling Observer claims that they were removed by security. We reached out to both CM Punk and Jack Perry for their sides of the story to clear up misconceptions regarding their prior argument and quote-unquote Perry trying not to come to work the next week. We're told he had a pre-planned and approved vacation. Tony Khan confirmed the altercation and said an investigation was going on. That was one of the first things Tony Khan stated at the media scrum. Tony Khan was like, fuck this shit. I'm not going to have Brawl Out happen and it's going to become Brawl In. I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that shit. And one of the first things that Tony Khan stated at that media scrum was, yes, there was an incident backstage and there's an ongoing investigation right now. So good on Tony Khan for acknowledging the situation and not letting shit escalate. Kind of like what happened last year with Brawl Out. But what are my thoughts on this whole Jack Perry CM Punk situation? Now, what's crazy is that after the Samoa Joe and CM Punk match, CM Punk walked, like, the camera was following CM Punk and it looked like he was walking, but he was very pissed off. He looked pissed off and he just walked down the ramp up on the stage and just left. Like, Punk looked pissed. And this was right at the same time where we all found out about the CM Punk and Jack Perry story. What are my thoughts on this whole situation? You know, I know a lot of people tend to shit on CM Punk, but what people need to understand is that Punk is one of the most passionate guys in all of wrestling, and when he sees some bullshit, he will call that shit out. And you may not like that, but at the end of the day, you know, you have to respect him for that. And this situation with Jack Perry and CM Punk is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen in my life. And honestly, whoever started this fight is at fault, but the basis of the situation is very stupid. And it falls at the fault of Jack Perry regardless. Because the whole moral of the story is CM Punk went up to Jack Perry to say, hey, I don't think it's safe to do a spot using real glass. And Jack Perry took it the wrong way. And if you really think about the moral of the story, Jack Perry is in the wrong. Because all CM Punk was trying to do was help Jack Perry not shorten his fucking career. And Jack Perry looks like a fucking idiot because he made the whole entire situation all about him saying, oh, they don't want me to use glass. Look, I understand. If you want to use glass in a spot in a wrestling match, you can use glass in a spot in a wrestling match. But bro, if a veteran comes at you and says, I don't think it's a good idea for you to use real glass, at least take the fucking advice. Like, Jack Perry, with all due respect, I like Jack Perry, but, like, you can't sit here and defend Jack Perry for this shit. Say what you want about CM Punk, and trust me, look, he has caused some problems in AEW. That we're not denying that whatsoever. But the Jack Perry story, this all falls in the fault of Jack Perry. This all falls in the lap of Jack Perry. With all due respect, this is all Jack Perry's fault. Whoever came up to who, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the whole situation as a whole. If a veteran comes to you and says, I don't think it's a good idea for you to use glass, at least take the advice because you won't shorten your fucking career. But instead with Jack Perry, at least what we've heard, Jack Perry took it the wrong way, which I think is so fucking stupid. Like, bro, it's glass. That shit can kill you. Bro, I had an accident when I was in kindergarten where I have this scar right over here where my whole arm, you know, went through a glass window and I didn't even notice. You know, glass is fucking real, guys. Glass is fucking real. Like, you know, if you want to use real glass, use it. But if a guy comes up to you and says, I don't think it's a good idea, I think it's in your best interest to actually take that advice. All CM Punk was trying to do was protect Jack Perry, and Jack Perry instead did not take the advice, and he looks like a fucking asshole and an idiot at the end of the day. And this is coming from a fan of Jack Perry. This whole situation, Jack Perry's at fault. Say what you want about CM Punk, but CM Punk was trying to do the right thing and trying to help out Jack Perry. But no, Jack Perry took it the wrong way. So at the end of the day, this is all Jack Perry's fault, with all due respect. And this whole story, when it came out, kind of took me away from the Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Hangman Page versus BC Gold and Don Callis family match. It really did. It really kind of took me away from the match. Even though the match was great, it took my mind off of that match and me out, my paranoid self. Like, the paranoia in me is fucking insane. While I found out about that story and the Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Bullet Club Gold, all that, the Elite versus Bullet Club Gold and Don Callis family match. When that match was happening, it took my mind off the match because all I was thinking about was like, oh shit, what the fuck is going to happen? Are we going to get Brawl In too, or are we going to get Brawl In instead of Brawl Out? Like, bro, we were all afraid about that. The paranoia was there. I was like, oh my God, this whole pay-per-view is going to get ruined for some bullshit. But thankfully that didn't escalate. But still, this whole situation is so fucking retarded. It is one of the dumbest things ever. And Jack Perry looks like a fucking idiot with all due respect. With all due respect, Jack Perry looks like a fucking idiot. You know, it's one of the, like, I hate being that guy because I support young talent. But with all due respect, sometimes young talent can do stupid shit. We're young, we do dumb shit. But sometimes you got to acknowledge that young talent can do stupid shit. Okay? Veterans are guilty of that too, but still. But let's move on. We got Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, Hangman Page versus Jay White, Juice Robinson, and from the Don Callis family, Konosuke Takeshita. Now, what's interesting was the match order. Right after, what was funny was that right after this whole Jack Perry and CM Punk story came out, right after the Punk match, we had the Kenny Omega match with Hangman Page, and clearly there's some real-life heat with CM Punk and Hangman Page, and immediately after this six-man match, we had FTR versus the fucking Young Bucks. The balls on Tony Khan for doing shit like that is the funniest shit that I've ever seen in my life. How the fuck do you have a CM Punk match, you follow that up with the Elite Six-Man, and then you follow that up with a Young Bucks match? I don't know, if that is not balls, I do not know what is. Holy shit. But we had Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Hangman Adam Page taking on Bullet Club Gold's Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Konosuke Takeshita. Everybody faces off. Juice Robinson and Hangman start. We get a shoulder tackle by Hangman. Hangman goes for a boot. Kenny tags in. We get a chop by Kenny, and then we get a chop by Hangman. Both men target Juice Robinson, and they take turns. Kota Ibushi makes the tag, but then Jay White tags in. Both lock up. Kota misses a roundhouse kick, and then we get a shoulder tackle by Jay White. Kota gets up, but then Kota and Jay exchange strikes. Kota goes for a kick onto the chest of Jay White, and that was a furious fucking kick. After that, we get a kick again by Kota Ibushi. Kenny tags in. Kenny goes for the Katora Crusher. After that, Takeshita is legal. We get a double team attempt by the Golden Lovers. We then get a Hurricane Rana by Kenny. Kenny is he takes out Juice Robinson. He's in the center. And then we get a somersault by Kenny over the top rope onto the outside. Kenny is on the top, and then he misses, and Jay White attacks Kenny Omega. Juice and Jay end up ganging up on Kenny Omega and beating him to shit. After that, Takeshita and Kota exchange strikes. Hangman later on is fighting everybody off, but then everybody is brawling at this point. Takeshita goes for a right hand on Kenny, but then Takeshita runs through Kenny. At this point, Jay White is the legal man. He works on Kenny Omega. We get a dragon screw by Jay White on Kenny. Juice is the legal man. We then get a suplex by Juice, but then we get a cover on Kenny and a near fall. Kenny then and Juice exchange strikes. We get a senton by Juice, and we get a cover and a near fall. Omega goes for a suplex on Juice, but then Kenny lands on his feet when I believe it was one of the men actually picked up Kenny, but Kenny landed on his feet. The heels grab the hair of Omega, but then later Omega escapes and rolls in to get the tag. But when Omega tried to go for the tag, the Guns take out either, I believe it was Kota Ibushi or Hangman Page. I believe it was Kota Ibushi. But Hangman was on the apron. He gets the tag. He fights everybody off. Hangman goes for a fall-away slam on Jay White, but then after that, we get a tope by Hangman. He then goes for a second tope on the other side. Then Hangman goes for a lariat. We get a cover by Hangman and a near fall. Hangman, after that, tries to go for the Deadeye, but then Jay White escapes the Deadeye. Kota then goes for the blind tag. Kota then goes for a series of kicks on Jay White. We get a standing moonsault. Beautiful standing moonsault by the one and only Golden Star, Kota Ibushi. We get a cover by Ibushi and the near fall when Takeshita comes in. Then we get a double moonsault off the top, but then Ibushi slips on the rope, and once we're back into the ring, the Golden Elite are just going for a series of strikes. So what's funny is that usually with the Golden Lovers, Kenny goes for the moonsault on one side, and in the other corner, Kota Ibushi goes for the other side. So what happened was Kenny went for his moonsault first, and it looked like he tried to do it at the same time, but then Kota actually slipped. But Kota actually managed to really maintain his balance and still go for the moonsault. It was botched a little bit, but it still looked pretty good. We get a German by Hangman. We get half and half by Kota Ibushi. Then after that, we get a cover and a near fall. Jay tries to go for the Blade Runner, but then Kota counters the knee. Jay White ends up going for the Uranagi, but then Takeshita and Kenny exchange shots. Juice comes in and then gets hit with the Snapdragon Suplex. Takeshita goes for a fucking furious Blue Thunder Bomb. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Kenny blocks the knee. We get a knee to the back of Takeshita. Kenny goes for a goddamn Poison Rana on Takeshita. We get a cover and a near fall. Takeshita is on the top, but then Juice Robinson comes in. Kenny picks up Juice, but then Hangman makes the tag. Then we get a shooting star press by Kenny, a moonsault by Kenny on Juice, After that, we get an avalanche fall-away slam off the top on Konosuke Takeshita. We get a cover into near fall. Hangman is on the top. He goes to the top. We get a moonsault on the guns by Hangman. Hangman is then on the apron. We get the buckshot lariat caught by Jay White. We then get a knee strike. Juice Robinson comes in. Kenny comes in. He gets dumped. After that, we get the golden trigger countered by Takeshita, which was fucking insane. Kota and Juice exchange elbows, but Takeshita ends up hitting the fucking jumping knee. Hangman goes for the buckshot from behind on Konosuke Takeshita, so Takeshita at this point is down. Kenny is in the ring, but then Jay White comes in. Kenny counters the Blade Runner. We then get the V-trigger by Kenny. Then he goes for the knee on Juice, and then he goes for the V-trigger once again on Jay. But Takeshita rolls up Kenny from behind. Yes, Konosuke Takeshita, who was still the legal man, he went for the roll-up from behind on Kenny Omega, pins Kenny Omega to get the 1, 2, 3, and Jay White, Juice Robinson, and Konosuke Takeshita beat Kenny Omega, Kota Ibushi, and Hangman Adam Page. Overall thoughts on this whole match. Again, the whole drama with CM Punk and Jack Perry really took my mind off of this match. But really the last few moments of this match were fucking awesome. You know, Kota Ibushi, Kota Ibushi is not at his prime. Let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, he took a long hiatus, so he still has a little bit of work to do, but he still looked pretty good with the stuff that he got in this match. Kenny Omega was great. Takeshita, bro, they booked Takeshita. In this match, they booked Takeshita like a fucking killer. And what we found out at the media scrum is that we're going to be getting a one-on-one match this Sunday at All Out with Kenny Omega taking on Konosuke Takeshita. I don't know if we're probably going to get a match of the year caliber match, but we're definitely going to be getting a match of the year caliber match with that match. We got Kenny Omega versus Konosuke Takeshita at All Out. But this match was great. I enjoyed this match. Really, the MVP of this entire match was fucking Konosuke Takeshita. Takeshita was a fucking killer in this match. He looked great, and he's going to be a star in the future, I guarantee you. And the winners of this match is Takeshita, Jay White, and Juice Robinson. My only problem with this match was not the match itself, but I remember when they first announced this match, I was excited, but at the same time, I was kind of questioning this decision because, yes, I would love to see a match like this, but at the same time, if you think about it, you know, there was barely any build for this match. And yes, there is story behind in this match, but we want to see the story escalate and continue on television. So the fact that we didn't really get a lot of build for a lot of weeks for this match kind of says a lot about the entire All-In build, but at least we got this match, and hopefully we can get a future one-on-one match between Kenny Omega and Jay White. I'm definitely excited about that. But overall, this was a great match. In our next match, we got FTR versus the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championships. This is the third match in the trilogy between FTR and the Young Bucks. And honestly, overall thoughts on this match. This match was great. It was amazing. It was phenomenal. You know, it was everything that it needed to be. But the real question for me is was this match better than their previous two matches, or I should say, was this match better than their second match? Because I believe their second match was their best match that they've ever had. And of course, I'm talking about the match that they had in April of last year when they were wrestling for the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championships. Keep in mind, that was coming off of the first match between the Briscoes and FTR at Supercard of Honor, which after the match, we had the Young Bucks attack FTR. But nonetheless, I believe they attacked the Briscoes. I completely forgot, but they did show up at Supercard of Honor. I completely forgot. But still, you know, was this better than their last match that they had last year? No. And the reason why I say that, and it was not really because of what the Young Bucks and FTR did in this match. To me, what makes a good wrestling match, or a part that makes a good wrestling match for me, is the reaction for the crowd. And usually when a crowd is quiet for moments on a match that I really want to enjoy, it kind of gets me upset, and I kind of like start to just kind of rebel against the match. And there were some moments in this match where I was like, bro, why is the crowd not fucking reacting? Now, clearly there's a big difference between, you know, you being at the actual stadium and the production end from you watching a stadium show on television. Maybe there was a production side of things. This was AEW's first stadium show. Maybe there was a production glitch. We do not know. But there were some portions, especially in the opening parts of the match where the crowd, where the crowd was just like really quiet, and like you can tell when FTR and the Young Bucks try to do something big to really get the crowd riled up, the crowd just sat there and didn't do anything. So that was really disappointing. But I will say, the last few moments of this match were fucking awesome, and it literally had me on the edge of my seat. I'll say that about that right now. But was this better than their second match, which I consider their best match? No, it was not. It was not. But this match still holds up as a great wrestling match. Dax and Nick start. We get a split reaction for both teams, so there's clearly one side that loves the Young Bucks and the other side that loves FTR. I believe there was also a chant about Wheeler's got a gun. Wheeler's got a gun. Wheeler's got a gun. That shit had me dying. Now, you couldn't hear it on television, but if you were on social media watching this match and there was a lot of videos showing that chant, I swear to God, Wheeler definitely portrays himself as an 80s wrestler. He pulled an Arn Anderson and fucking pulled out the Glock. You gotta love that shit. Cash tags in. We got a shoulder tackle by Cash. We got a slam by Nick. At this point, Matt is the legal man. We got a double team by FTR. We get a cover by Dax, who is the legal man, on Matt Jackson, followed by a Hurricane Rana on both Bucks. Both teams brawl. We get a double lariat by both teams. We then get a double drop kick by the Bucks, but then we get a clothesline. After that, we get a running kick by Nick. Later on in the match, the Bucks are in control. After that, what happens is we get a German by Dax. I literally fucked up my notes right here. We got a near fall. Nick comes in. He kicks on Dax. We get a springboard caught by Dax. We then get a slingshot Liger bomb. Matt goes for the crucifix, and then we get a near fall. Dax applies the sharpshooter, and then Cash applies the sharpshooter on the apron. Cash gets dropped onto the steel steps onto the outside, but then Nick takes out Dax in the ring. He ends up hitting a moonsault on the outside. Dax is on the top. Nick is on the top, and what happens is the Bucks try to go for the powerplex, and the Bucks actually managed to hit the powerplex, but it was blocked by one of the members of FTR. Then after that, we get a backslide by Dax on Matt. We get a near fall followed by a high kick on Nick. FTR end up going for the spike pile driver. We get a cover into near fall when Nick comes in. We get a bunch of "this is awesome" chants by the crowd. Then they try to go for Shatter Machine, but Matt makes the save when they try to go for the Shatter Machine. After that, we get a roll-up by Dax, and we get a near fall. But then by accident, Dax knocks out Cash. We then get a backslide by Nick. We get a series of super kicks by the Bucks. After that, we get a double super kick by the Bucks, so they're going full-on with the super kick party. After that, we get a spike pile driver by the Bucks, and then we get a cover and a near fall. Dax has Matt for the pile driver position, but then we get a super kick on Dax. Matt ends up going for the roll-up, and then we get a near fall. After that, we get a BTE trigger ducked by Dax Harwood. Cash spears through Nick through the ropes. FTR, they grab Matt. So Cash and Dax grab Matt. Then they hit the BTE trigger. Yes, FTR hits the BTE trigger. They then kiss Matt. We get a cover by Cash on Matt and a near fall. Cash goes for a springboard, but then Dax super kicks Matt. Nick and Dax are on the outside. We then get a springboard 450 splash by Dax. Shades of their match at Full Gear back in 2020. Matt goes for a super kick. We get a cover and a near fall. We get the BTE trigger by the Bucks. We get a cover and another near fall. Dax is up, but then the Bucks are behind him. The Bucks try to go for Shatter Machine, and then they end up hitting the BTE trigger on Cash. We get a cover and a near fall. The Bucks are in the ring, but then they get taken out. FTR go for the Shatter Machine, and we get a cover, and FTR retain the AEW Tag Team Championships. After the match, FTR, Jesus Christ. Literally, my throat is fucking killing me right now. This is my second attempt at filming this video. What happened is after the match, FTR offer a handshake to the Bucks, but instead of the Bucks giving back the handshake, the Bucks, being the petty bastards that they are, walk out and do not shake the hands of Dax and Cash. What could that mean? And are we possibly going to be seeing an Elite versus CM Punk feud? Okay, I don't want to speculate a lot, but still, could we be seeing that? I don't know, but it's very, very, very interesting to see what could happen. But nonetheless, what are my thoughts on this match? I thought this match was pretty good. Again, was this their best match? Absolutely not. A large portion of that had to do with the reaction of the crowd. But nonetheless, this match, especially in the last few moments, got the fucking job done. And honestly, I personally thought that we were going to get the Bucks beating FTR, considering the stance of Cash Wheeler and his recent arrest. But no, they went full-fledged, and FTR retains the AEW Tag Team titles. And honestly, I'm not mad about that decision whatsoever, because FTR are 100% the best tag team in the world, period. I don't give a shit what anybody says, and FTR are at another level right now. So FTR retains the AEW Tag Team titles, but the bigger question is, what is next for FTR? Who are they going to feud with next? A lot of people are saying Aussie Open. A lot of people are saying a lot of other tag teams like Santana and Ortiz. We do not know if Santana and Ortiz are even still on the same page, so we have no idea about that. But another question is, what is next for the Young Bucks? That's another interesting question, man. What is next for the Young Bucks? What are they going to do after All In? That is the bigger question. And honestly, I have absolutely no idea what is next for the Young Bucks, but I'm intrigued, and we're going to be seeing a lot of that in the next couple of weeks. So those are my thoughts on FTR versus the Young Bucks at All In. Moving on. We got Stadium Stampede. Yes, Stadium Stampede. We got Best Friends, Orange Cassidy, Eddie Kingston, and Penta El Cero Miedo taking on the Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley, Wheeler Yuta, Claudio Castagnoli, and a returning Santana and Ortiz. Moxley looked so fucking badass in his entrance. He was wearing this big-ass trench coat looking like a whole fucking mob boss from The Sopranos. He looked fucking badass. Same thing as Wheeler Yuta and Claudio Castagnoli. It's hilarious. This match was pure chaos. Just pure chaos on all fucking levels. Pure chaos. Eddie immediately goes after Claudio Castagnoli because Eddie Kingston holds a grudge over some Chikara shit, and he goes after Claudio because he don't give a shit. He keeps his fucking receipts. He immediately goes after Claudio Castagnoli. Santana and Ortiz, best friends, are in the ring facing off. Trent later on goes for a moonsault on the outside, but then he gets hit with the trash can lid by Ortiz. Keep in mind, when I'm going through this match, I probably skipped a couple of spots. This match was all over the fucking place, but all for the good reasons. But still, this match was all over the place, and there was so much shit happening all at once. Later on, Ortiz and Santana try to go for the street sweeper. Penta has a chair. We get a sling blade on Ortiz, and then he goes for a sling blade on Mike Santana. Then he throws a chair on Ortiz. We get a DDT by Penta and Ortiz. We then get a backstabber by Penta. After that, we get a cutter by Moxley. Moxley catches Penta. He ends up hitting the paradigm shift. Then Moxley, I talked about how Moxley is one sick son of a bitch during the Blood and Guts review. But this man is way more fucking sick. This man pulled out fucking skewers. He pulls out skewers and he almost stabs Penta. He stabs the skewers almost on the head of Penta. But instead, Penta hits Moxley on the head. Penta grabs the skewers and he stabs Moxley, and he just drills them on his head, and the skewers are sticking out of the head of Jon Moxley. Good fucking God. Mox is craving for violence. He loves this shit. God damn. After that, Penta goes for the Made in Japan with the skewers. We get a cover, and Moxley kicks out at 1. Eddie and Claudio are up from what Excalibur said, up in the 200 section of Wembley Stadium. Santana goes for a powerbomb on the chairs. Santana pile drives Penta on the chair, but then Cassidy is in the ring with Moxley. Then he does those amazing kicks. Cassidy, you know Cassidy, man. Bro, he has kicks better than the fucking super kicks of the Young Bucks. They are amazing. But what happens is Moxley casually pulls out a fork, and once Moxley has a fork, it's fucking game over, and he's going to murder your ass. So what happens after that is that we get a drop kick by Cassidy. Moxley stabs him onto the back of his head. After that, he just mauls Cassidy in the head with the fucking fork. At this point, Cassidy is just busted open with blood all over, just gashing around his head. Moxley with the brainbuster on the chair. After that, Wheeler suplexes Chuck Taylor onto the barricade. At this point, weapons are all over the goddamn place. Ortiz has a kendo stick. He hits Trent with the kendo stick. Trent is on the top. A ladder is placed onto the middle rope, but then Moxley drives Trent down on the ladder. Then Santana and Ortiz drive Trent down onto the ladder into the corner. Moxley drives Trent onto the barbed wire board. We get a splash by Ortiz on the top. Moxley goes for a pile driver on Trent onto the steel steps. Cassidy gets stabbed with the fork by Ortiz. Everybody is on the stage. Ortiz gets the table out. Suze Van shows up. Moxley then goes up to Sue, and I believe he kissed Sue. I don't know what he did to Sue, but he did some crazy shit to Sue. Sue then gives Trent Sue's cookies, and he hits BCC with the plate. Penta Oscuro then comes out. Some music played, and you were like, what the fuck is this? Oh, yeah, it was the dark side of Penta. Penta Oscuro. Dark side. After that, Penta goes up on the ladder. I don't know what kind of ladder it was, but the ladder was so cheap that once both Santana and Penta were climbing up the fucking ladder, the ladder broke. It kind of reminded me of the time on The Ultimate Fighter where Rampage Jackson was so fucking pissed off, he kicked the door down, and that door got murdered like a motherfucker. And Dana White was like, oh, go show you how cheap our fucking doors are. It was on that level with the ladder. That ladder was so fucking cheap. So what happened after that was the ladder breaks, but Penta still manages to go up. He ends up hitting a sunset flip powerbomb on Santana. Goes to show you how crazy Pentagon is. Then best friends hug Wheeler Yuta, and they got to give the people what they want back in the ring. Everybody comes in the ring. Ortiz hits everybody with the baking plate. After that, Yuta goes for the seatbelt pin, in which he's been pinning a lot of people recently. Yuta goes for the screwdriver, but he stabs it onto the top turnbuckle, a symbol. After that, Chuck drives down Yuta. We get a cover into near fall when Claudio comes in. Moxley goes for a tope on the outside, but then we get the orange punch attempted, but then Claudio catches him. After that, he spins Cassidy around. Trent and Ortiz are on the top, but then Trent suplexes Ortiz on the table. After that, we get the Ricola bomb countered by Orange with the orange punch. We get the second orange punch followed by the third. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Cassidy basically tapes his hand, but the sticky end is sticking out on his hand. And what happens is he sticks it with glass. So glass is all over his fucking fist. And he runs into a right by Moxley. And what happens is Claudio ends up going for the pump-up uppercut. Then after that, Eddie Kingston comes out with a barbed wire chair. After that, Moxley takes the chair away. Both men face off. We get the roll-up by Claudio, and we get a near fall. After that, Eddie Kingston goes for the Hurricane, the spinning back fist on Claudio. Does the same on Moxley. Drives Moxley through the table. We get the orange punch on Claudio, and we get a cover by Orange, and best friends with Penta and Eddie Kingston win the match. This was chaotic on all levels, as I stated earlier. It was absolutely insane. Just everything about this, man. You knew if Moxley is involved in a match called Stadium Stampede or Anarchy in the Arena, you know for a fucking fact John Moxley is just not going to give a fuck what he does. He will do the craziest shit possible to really get the crowd just reacting. It was that insane. But nonetheless, this match was absolutely crazy. I loved it for what it was. It was phenomenal. It got the job done. And everybody was invested. You could tell the crowd in London were just screaming for shit like this. They were screaming for fucking violence. The skewer spot, the fucking ladder, everything. The fork. I've never thought a fork could do that much damage, but clearly it can. Jesus Christ. Everybody was insane, but this match was phenomenal and absolutely got the job done. Hats off to everybody, and those were my thoughts on Stadium Stampede. Moving on, we got the four-way match with the women. Hikaru Shida defends her AEW Women's World title against Saraya, Britt Baker, and Toni Storm. All women fight it out. We get a double team by Saraya and Toni Storm. Of course, the big story of this whole match is that we got two members of the Outcast competing in this match. Oh, and by the way, Saraya came out to Queen. Tony Khan paid money for Queen. We Will Rock You. Absolutely awesome to see. And she also came out with their family. Britt fights off both women, so this match really started off pretty quickly. We get a neckbreaker by Britt. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. We get a running hip attack into the corner by Toni Storm. We get a cover by Saraya, but Toni doesn't let Saraya go for the pin. And both women from the Outcasts argue. Shida comes in, makes Saraya and Storm collide with one another. Shida goes for a jumping knee into the corner, but then we get a suplex by Shida on Saraya into the corner. After that, Shida goes for repeated rights on Toni Storm into the corner on the middle rope. Shida then gets dropped on her back, but then we get a sling blade by Britt on Toni Storm. Then we get a kick by Saraya. Saraya's mom, who was a former British wrestler, Saraya's mom is in the front row. She helps out Toni Storm, but Britt ducks, and Toni Storm accidentally hits the mom of Saraya. Saraya, meanwhile, she looks at the whole situation, and she is pissed. And what happens is Saraya's mom is getting held back because she wants to beat the shit out of Toni Storm. Saraya takes out Toni Storm. She fights her off. The Outcasts are going at it. Saraya goes for repeated rights. Tony turns things around. Tony Storm exposes the corner turnbuckle. After that, Tony Storm, or I should say Ruby Soho, runs out. She enters the ring. She tries to talk things out with Tony Storm. But what happens is Ruby gets hit by Tony Storm. And what happens is that Ruby's just shocked that she just leaves, and she is pissed the fuck off. We get a thrust kick followed by a missile drop kick by Shida. Britt Baker goes for a neck breaker. After that, Storm goes for a kick. Britt goes for a super kick of her own, but then Storm covers Saraya. We get a near fall. Saraya asks, "What's your problem, mate?" Saraya goes for the submission, but then Britt hits the stomp. We get a cover by Britt and a near fall. After that, Britt puts the glove on. Shida fights Britt Baker, but then we get an elbow by Shida on Saraya. She picks up Saraya, but then Shida slams Britt with the Falcon Arrow. After that, she goes to the top. She hits the Meteora. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Shida goes for the katana. We get a cover and a near fall when Britt Baker comes in. She applies the lockjaw. And what happens after the lockjaw, we get a roll-up by Shida and a near fall. But Saraya spray paints the eyes of Tony Storm. And then she drops down Tony Storm, and we get a cover. And Saraya wins the match. And Saraya is your new AEW Women's World Champion. Overall thoughts on this, man. I thought this match was okay. Not the best match that I've seen, honestly. When it comes to the women's division, you guys know my thoughts on the women's division. There's clearly problems in the women's division. Let's be honest with ourselves. But look, I'm going to be brutally honest right here. I did not want Saraya to win the AEW Women's Championship. The reason why is because of the fact that her run in AEW, I'm going to be brutally honest, I am not a fan of. I wasn't a fan of the Outcasts whatsoever, and the Outcasts are going nowhere. There's no direction with the Outcasts. There's just no storyline development whatsoever, in my opinion. Clearly, there is now with the dissension, but there is dissension in a group that nobody gave a shit about, with all due respect. I did not want Saraya to win the women's title because she really didn't do anything recently in her AEW run, in my opinion. If anything, I wanted Toni Storm or Hikaru Shida to retain the title. The problem with this is that Hikaru Shida just won the title a couple of weeks ago, and now she just dropped it to Saraya. That is a major problem, in my opinion, man. Shida could have easily been a workhorse and literally put out banger matches every week on Dynamite. But instead, we did not get that, and Saraya won the women's title. Now, that being said, I understand why they put the women's title on Saraya. They put the women's title on Saraya because, of course, this is the UK, and she is from the United Kingdom. So it makes total sense for her to win the women's title. But the real question that I have is, what is going to be the follow-up? What is going to be the follow-up for Saraya? How is her title reign going to be? How are they going to book Saraya? Is it going to be a situation where she wins the title for the moment and her title reign is going to be absolutely dog shit? We've seen that time and time again on AEW programming, like constantly. They don't follow up really well when it comes to title reigns. That's just a common criticism in AEW that is very, very, very true. They don't follow up with that type of stuff. How is her title reign going to be treated? How are they going to book Saraya strongly? That is my major question. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens. I understand why they put the belt on her because of the moment, and she was celebrating with her family. So congratulations with Saraya. She dealt with a lot, by, facing retirement and doctors not clearing her and finally her getting cleared. But still, what is the follow-up going to be? I understand the moment, but what is the follow-up going to be? That's my major question. But with that being said, Saraya is your new AEW Women's Champion, and we'll see where her title reign goes. Meanwhile, one thing that I forgot, and this was something that they have been showing for many times. They showed this woman many times in the crowd. Mercedes Moné. Yes, Mercedes Moné was shown multiple times in the crowd. Now, before everybody gets their hopes up, no, Mercedes is not all elite just yet, but I don't think it's a coincidence with Mercedes Moné being shown multiple times in the crowd. Mercedes Moné, number one, is still on the injured list. I believe she injured herself in the match that she had against Willow Nightingale for the match to determine the New Japan Strong Women's Champion. That's when she got injured in the match against Willow Nightingale. But Mercedes Moné was still in the crowd. What could that mean? If they're showing Mercedes Moné multiple times in the crowd, clearly there's something big going to be happening. And honestly, if AEW, once she is cleared and AEW manages to sign Mercedes Moné, I wouldn't be surprised if Mercedes Moné is the top woman in the women's division if she goes to AEW. Take this with a grain of salt. We do not know if she's going to AEW yet, but we're going to have to wait and see what happens. But she has been shown multiple times in the crowd. And honestly, if she is shown multiple times in the crowd, then clearly, something is fucking up. And I'm very, very, very excited to see what happens when it comes to Mercedes Moné and AEW. This is a story that we're all going to be keeping an eye on. We got the coffin match. We got Darby Allin and Sting taking on Christian Cage and Swerve Strickland. Sting and Darby had a fucking amazing entrance. Phenomenal, very cinematic entrance. They showed some film and Sting talking about how we're in London, and he had, one side of his face paint different, like kind of like Joker Sting, and one side of the other of his face paint kind of like normal Sting. But then the music played, and it was not Sting's normal AEW theme. Tony Khan, we all talk about how Tony Khan's awesome, but we didn't know he was this awesome. At some point in Sting's AEW run, he needed to come out to this particular song. And Tony Khan was like, fuck this shit. We're going to pay the rights because this is Wembley. I'm going to spend all the money that I can for this guy. Tony Khan got the rights to Seek and Destroy by Metallica, Sting's WCW theme from 1999 to 2001. Now, granted, it was not the same version of Seek and Destroy that Sting used in WCW, because I believe the version that Sting used in WCW was a live version of that song. This was the actual song. Tony Khan paid for the rights for this song. Sting came out to Seek and Destroy by Metallica, and the crowd just embraced this guy. They embraced the shit out of Sting. It was so awesome to see. Such a badass entrance. I don't care if this is only for a one-time thing. This was awesome. I marked the fuck out when he came out to Seek and Destroy by Metallica, because, bro, that song just embodies Sting. It just does. At least the current incarnation of Sting, or the Crow version of Sting. It just embodies who Sting is. Fucking awesome, man. Fucking awesome. But Sting has the baseball bat. Swerve has the bat. Darby gives Sting a thumbtack jacket. Prince Nana comes in. And one thing I will say about Prince Nana is every time when the Mogul Embassy comes out with Swerve's theme, and I love Prince Nana just doing the dance. Like, I'm starting to do that shit now. But whatever. Moving on the match. We get a stinger and coffin splash at the same time. Christian Cage comes in. Swerve spears Sting. And I believe during this whole match with Christian Cage and Sting being involved in this match, I believe there were some TNA chants, because, of course, Sting and Christian Cage have a lot of history in TNA. Christian tapes Darby's arms up. Christian then lands into the corner. Darby goes for a springboard moonsault with no arms, which is fucking insane. We get a cannonball senton by Darby onto the outside. Sting takes the tape off of Darby, but then Sting drives Swerve onto the coffin. After that, Christian comes in. He sends Sting onto the steel steps. Cage then drives the chair on Darby into the ring. Cage has another chair, but then Cage misses the concerto attempt. After that, we get a dropkick by Darby, but then Darby gets elevated onto the top turnbuckle face first. Then Swerve picks up Darby. He is on the apron. Then Darby goes for a stunner on Swerve. Sting is on the apron, but then he hits the elbow on the table. After that, Sting is in the ring. Sting goes for a leg drop on the table on the fucking ladder. After that, Darby places Cage into the corner. Darby goes to the top. He hits the dropkick on Christian Cage. Sting and Darby open the coffin. He places Christian in the coffin, but then Cage holds on from them closing the lid on him. After that, Luchasaurus comes in. Luchasaurus then drops Darby onto the coffin. Nick Wayne then comes in with the skateboard. Luchasaurus then goes for the headbutt on Nick Wayne. He chokeslams Nick Wayne onto the skateboard, but then Luchasaurus picks up Nick Wayne and walks up the stage with him. Christian then gets driven onto the coffin, same as Swerve. Swerve is at the top of the coffin, but then Darby is on the top. He tries to go for the coffin drop, but then Swerve escapes. After that, Sting fights off both men in the ring. We get a stinger splash on both men into the corner. We get a scorpion deathlock on Christian Cage, but then Swerve comes in with the chair. But Sting no-sells. He no-sells the chair shots. He hits her right on the chair, knocking Swerve down. Cage hits him with the baseball bat. Swerve is on the top. He hits a double stomp on Sting. Cage drags the coffin into the ring. The coffin is open. Darby gets sent to the barricade. Sting is on the coffin, but the lid is still open. Swerve then spits on the bat, and he throws it in the coffin. But throwing it in the coffin, Swerve, that was a big mistake you fucking made. And what happened after that is Swerve goes behind the coffin, closes the coffin, but the baseball bat blocks the coffin from closing fully. And what happens is Swerve places Sting into the coffin, but then Cage chokes Darby. Meanwhile, Swerve goes to the top. He misses the 450 splash onto the coffin. Darby hits Cage with the belt, but then Sting hits the Scorpion Death Drop on the coffin. Sting places Swerve on the coffin, but then Swerve lands on the lid. Darby then is on the top. Darby goes for the coffin drop, and he closes the lid, and Darby and Sting win the match with a great moment at Wembley Stadium. Overall thoughts on this match, man. This match was off the fucking charts. It really was. It really was off the charts. I absolutely loved this match for what it was, man. Everything about this was everything that it really needed to be. Sting coming out to Seek and Destroy was awesome. Really, I said this before and I'll say it again. The biggest story for this match is not really the match involving everybody themselves, but really the big story regarding this whole match was just the reaction that Sting was going to be getting at Wembley, because you knew the UK audience was going to embrace. They were going to embrace this man at Wembley, and they did, man. Sting was over like a motherfucker in this match. You'll love to see it. Phenomenal coffin match. I had a blast. It was absolutely awesome to see. In our next match, we got probably one of the best matches in the entire card. Will Ospreay versus Chris Jericho. This match, when this match was first announced, or first rumored, I should say, I kind of reacted. I'm like, Chris Jericho versus Will Ospreay. I mean, everybody wants to see Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay. You know, why isn't Kenny Omega in a singles match? But let's be honest with ourselves. And this is just the nature and the reality of the situation. Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, that is a New Japan story. I know we all want to see it at All In, but that is a New Japan story because it started in a New Japan ring, and it will most likely conclude in a New Japan ring. But after this past Wednesday on Dynamite, the segment with Will Ospreay and Chris Jericho was awesome. Absolutely awesome. The story that they're telling with the Don Callis family, you know, with Don Callis swerving Chris Jericho. We're not really swerving Chris Jericho, you know, revealing the painting and having the painting to have Don Callis hold the head of Chris Jericho if Chris Jericho did not accept his invitation to the Don Callis family. Great storytelling. The Will Ospreay stuff, even though the match was announced kind of last minute, the match itself was fucking awesome. The entrances by both men. Chris Jericho was singing Judas, but before he was singing Judas, he was doing the "Ew" with the crowd in London, and the crowd in London just embraced it, and they followed they followed Chris Jericho in everything that he was doing. And then he was singing Judas into the ring. He was coming out with Sammy Guevara. Will Ospreay got a fucking grand entrance as well. Will Ospreay was treated like a goddamn superstar. And I'll talk more about Will Ospreay later on, but he was treated like a fucking megastar. Let's go through the match real quick. We get a shoulder tackle. Ospreay gets taken down by Chris Jericho. Jericho, meanwhile, is literally holding both of his arms up in celebration, but Ospreay springs himself back up Shawn Michaels style. Both men slap one another. We get a drop kick by Ospreay. Will goes to the top. He ends up going for a Sky Twister press on the outside. We get a springboard elbow strike into the ring by Ospreay. We get a cover into near fall. Both men exchange chops. Both men, after that, boots one another, taking each other down. Both men exchange shots. We get a chop by Ospreay, followed by a chop once again by Ospreay. Ospreay gets taken to the apron. Jericho goes for the dropkick, taking Ospreay to the outside. Jericho then goes for a baseball dropkick. After that, we get a series of chops by Jericho on Ospreay. Ospreay goes to the top. Jericho catches him. Both men are on the apron, but then Jericho goes for a German suplex on Will Ospreay on the apron. Jericho flips off the crowd in the UK. We get a delayed vertical suplex by Jericho. Jericho continues to work on Ospreay, but then Jericho drives his knee on Ospreay. Ospreay goes for a corkscrew kick on Jericho. We then get an inverted atomic drop by Ospreay. We get a chop followed with a shooting star press, and we get a cover by Ospreay and a near fall. We get a boot by Ospreay. Jericho comes in. He goes to the top, but then we get a Hurricane Rana taking Ospreay down. We get a cover by Jericho and a near fall. Ospreay misses the drop kick, and then we get the lion salt by Jericho, but then Ospreay gets the knees up. Jericho, he takes Jericho to the top rope. Ospreay goes to the top. But then we get the shooting star onto the back of Jericho by Ospreay. After that, we get a cover and a near fall. Jericho counters the Oscar attempt, but then once again, Ospreay goes for the springboard. We get a code breaker. Then he goes for the second code breaker. We get a cover and a near fall. Jericho tries to go for the Judas effect, but it gets countered by Will Ospreay. Ospreay hits, finally, the Oscutter. After that, we get a cover by Ospreay and a near fall. Ospreay tries to go for the Stormbreaker, but then Jericho counters into the Hurricane Rana. Then he goes for the walls. Don Callis goes for the distraction onto the referee, but then Sammy hits, at the same time, hits Ospreay with the baseball bat. So both men are basically doing some fuckery. After that, Ospreay goes for repeated right hands. Jericho runs into a Spanish fly. We get a cover and a near fall. Ospreay runs into a code breaker, but then Jericho goes for the Oscutter. And Jericho, when he tried to go for the Oscutter, it kind of botched, if you really think about it. We get a cover and a kick out at 1. After that, both men go for a series of exchanges. Jericho goes for the low blow without the referee seeing it. He then hits the Judas effect in desperation, but then we get a cover and a kick out. After that, Jericho goes for the walls, but then we get a roll up by Ospreay and we get a near fall. Ospreay goes for the powerbomb, then goes for the jackknife pin, but then we get another near fall. Then we get the hitting blade by Ospreay, followed by the Stormbreaker. After that, we get a cover and a kick out. Hidden blade by Ospreay, followed by a Stormbreaker once again by Ospreay. And we get a cover. And actually, once he hit the hidden blade, before he hit the hidden blade, Jericho flipped off Ospreay, saying, "Go fuck yourself, hit me, bitch." He hits the hidden blade, hits the Stormbreaker, and what happened is we get a cover, and Will Ospreay gets the win and beats Chris Jericho in front of his hometown in the UK at Wembley Stadium, the Mecca of London, England. What happens is after that is that Sammy tries to get Jericho up, but then Jericho pushes Sammy away. What the hell happened to this? What is going on? Inner turmoil between Sammy and Jericho. What could that be? Could that be a heel turn with one of the two men? We have no idea. But we're definitely going to be seeing a singles match between Jericho and Sammy at some point. But overall, what are my thoughts on this whole match? This match was absolutely awesome to see. Really was. I really enjoyed this match for what it was. It was phenomenal. Everything about it was off the charts. And if you really think about it, Ospreay is given superstar treatment. Keep in mind, the way he made his entrance, he was treated like a superstar. And keep in mind, this is a guy that is not signed to AEW. He is still under contract with New Japan Pro Wrestling. And AEW is doing everything that they can to be like, bro, we are going to give you superstar treatment. We are going to treat you like the star that you are. You are going to be a top guy. And they showcased Will Ospreay very, very, very well. To the point where once his contract is up, most likely Will Ospreay will be all elite. This shit was fucking awesome. Will Ospreay is one of the best, if not the best in-ring performer in wrestling today. He's one of the best in-ring performers right now in the business. He is just up there, man. He is that damn good at what he does. He can adapt to any style. He's just that good. And he looked so good against Chris Jericho. Not only that, Chris Jericho looked very good in this match as well. You'll love to see it. It was absolutely awesome to see. Will Ospreay gets the win. And who knows, man, if AEW, once Will Ospreay's contract is up, if AEW does not call up Will Ospreay immediately once his New Japan contract is up, they are doing something wrong. 100% they gotta sign Will Ospreay. Just looking at the entrance alone that Will Ospreay got, with him not being signed to AEW and still working for New Japan, there's no buts or ifs. Will Ospreay is a fucking star in the making, and AEW is clearly looking at this and being like, yeah, we're going to sign this guy. Moving on, Nigel McGuinness is in the ring, and he announced the paid attendance record for Wembley Stadium at All In, 81,035 fans in attendance. We then get the House of Black versus the Acclaimed and Badass Billy Gunn. Not Daddy Ass, Badass Billy Gunn for the Trios Championships. I'm not going to go through the match spot by spot because I'm actually running out of time right now. But overall, it was not a bad match whatsoever. I didn't really care as much for this match, but nonetheless, it was a pretty good match. There was a spot where they did the Scissor Me Timbers on Julia Hart. They showed Mercedes watching this match once again. They hit 3 Famousers. After that, we get a cover, and Julia Hart drags Aubrey Edwards to the outside. We get the Black Mass from behind. We get a cover and Daycare count. We get the Arrival by Bowens, followed by the mic drop, but then we get a cover into 1 count. After that, we get the Famouser on Brody King by Billy Gunn. Bowens goes for the Arrival, the mic drop, and we get a cover and the Acclaimed win the Trios titles. After the match, the House of Black give the Acclaimed the Trios belts. Bowens cuts a promo. They said 2 months ago they would put the gold around Billy Gunn's waist once again. Here it is. One last thing. Scissor me daddy ass. Everybody loves the Acclaimed, and that was that. Great match overall, but to me, I didn't really care as much about this match. The Acclaimed are your new AEW Trios champions. It sucks that the House of Black lost because I've been really enjoying what the House of Black are doing, and the biggest question that I need to ask myself is, what is AEW going to be doing with the House of Black after? That is another question that we really need to ask ourselves. What is the House of Black going to be doing after they lost those Trios titles? We're going to have to wait and see, but nonetheless, it was pretty good, and the Acclaimed are your new Trios champions. We got the main event. We got Adam Cole versus MJF for the AEW World Championship. The creme de la creme, the main event of the biggest event, as it says at the top of this layout, the main event of the biggest event in wrestling history. This match was fucking amazing. Usually when it comes to main events, they get overshadowed by matches that happened in the undercard that just steal the show. And there were matches that definitely stole the show. But this match, for being the main event of All In, stole the fucking show. Before I give my actual thoughts, I'm going to go through the whole match. First off, the entrances for this match were off the charts. Off the charts. Like, bro, these entrances were amazing. Just amazing on all levels. Amazing on all levels. Seriously. It was that damn good. Adam Cole makes his entrance in front of 80,000 people. MJF has this elaborate entrance coming out with this devil mask. So the devil is in full force in this match. Both men face off and the crowd is just going absolutely crazy once the bell rings. Both men go under the ring. And once what they get under the ring is they grab each other, their t-shirts, and they put it on. And they're better than you, baby, t-shirts. The match starts. Both men lock up. And what happens is we get a side headlock takeover by Adam Cole. Both men stand off with one another. MJF offers a handshake. Adam Cole shakes his hand. So there's cooperation. Both men lock up again. We get a side headlock by MJF, but MJF later on does the strut. Adam Cole almost super kicks him, but then Adam Cole does the Adam Cole Bebe. So you can tell they got the crowd by the balls. Great to see. MJF grabs his hand and he's like, sportsmanship. And what happens is the crowd chants sportsmanship. Once again, they got the crowd by the balls. MJF goes for the cheap shot. He pulls Adam Cole up, but then Adam Cole slaps the shit out of MJF. We get a pump kick by Adam Cole, followed by an enziguri. He then picks up MJF, ends up hitting the Ushigoroshi. We get a cover into near fall. Adam Cole blocks the referee. MJF is like, Cole, what are you doing, man? And Adam Cole stomps on MJF repeatedly in the corner in desperation because he doesn't want to be the AEW champion. He needs to be the AEW champion, as we've seen on television the past couple of weeks. Adam Cole takes down MJF using the hair of MJF. MJF from behind gets up, springs himself up Shawn Michaels style. MJF does the same to Adam Cole. Adam Cole goes to the outside, but then MJF runs the ropes. So MJF runs the ropes, but then he doesn't go over the top. Adam Cole comes in. He ends up hitting a super kick. We get a cover and a kick out. In desperation, Adam Cole is pissed. Adam Cole is pissed and he screams, "We may be friends, but I'm better than you." Storytelling at its finest. Adam Cole rips the shirt off of MJF. MJF is now pissed the fuck off. Adam Cole goes for right hands. AC gouges the eyes of MJF. We then get a super kick blocked by MJF. Then after that, we get a slam by MJF. MJF drives Adam Cole onto the top turnbuckle repeatedly. After that, MJF goes for right hands onto the second rope. MJF then bites the face of Adam Cole. Then he whiplashes Adam Cole into the corner. Adam Cole's on the outside. MJF riles up the crowd. The crowd is up on their feet. MJF is in the ring. Then MJF is scared to take a dive like we saw earlier at the 0 Hour. But what happens? MJF mans the fuck up and becomes reckless and hits the goddamn tope on Adam Cole. He takes him back into the ring. We get a cover and a near fall. We then get a back elbow by Cole. MJF stops onto the top of the arm of Adam Cole. We get a roll-up by MJF, followed by a roll-up by Adam Cole. We get a bunch of roll-up reversals by both. We get a jackknife by Cole. MJF escapes. He tries to go for the powerbomb, but escapes once again. MJF then catches Cole and drives him on his knee. At this point, both men are down. MJF wants to go for the Panama Sunrise, but runs into a super kick. Adam Cole tries to go for the heat sinker. Yes, MJF's own move, the heat sinker. And what happens is after he tries to go for the heat sinker, we get a cover and a near fall, and MJF gets his boot onto the bottom rope. Adam Cole sends MJF to the steel steps. Both men are on top of the steel steps. Adam Cole then goes for the sheer drop brainbuster on MJF on the goddamn steel steps. MJF is down. Adam Cole is in the ring, concerned, but this was great storytelling by Nigel McGuinness. Adam Cole has this just concerned look on his face, but Nigel McGuinness on commentary was like, wait, but we do not know, what is he concerned about? Is he concerned about MJF with his well-being, or is he concerned that MJF is going to roll back in the ring and the match is still going to go on? Great storytelling by Nigel McGuinness. MJF then slides back into the ring at the right moment. Adam Cole goes to the top. He tries to go for the Panama Sunrise, but then MJF rolls out. MJF sweeps the leg of Cole onto the apron, but then MJF exposes the announce table. Both men are on the announce table, right? MJF sets up the tombstone pile driver to hit on Adam Cole on the announce table. But what happened was MJF could not bring himself to hit the tombstone pile driver on his best friend. And what happened was that Cole is in offense. And then Cole takes MJF and he wasted no fucking time. And he hits the tombstone pile driver on MJF on the announce table. Clearly shows the difference that MJF is afraid that he's going to hurt his friend, but Adam Cole has no remorse whatsoever. Cole sells his knee. Cole takes MJF into the ring. We got a cover by Cole and a near fall. Both men goes for a series of exchanges. MJF pokes the eye of Adam Cole. Pump kick by Cole. We get a rolling elbow by MJF, followed by a Canadian Destroyer on MJF by Adam Cole. But then MJF hits a kick. Both men are down, and the crowd is up on their feet. The crowd is absolutely fucking invested what they are watching. After that, both men pull themselves up. Then they hit the double clothesline. But instead of hitting the double clothesline together on another wrestler, they hit the double clothesline, knocking each other down. Fucking awesome. We get a cover by both men, but both men go for the double pin, and both men pin each other up, and the match ends up becoming a draw. The match is officially a draw. Adam Cole is pissed. Adam Cole wants to do 5 more minutes. The same thing from their first match months ago on Dynamite, where the match ended in a time limit draw, and Adam Cole wanted, and he asked MJF 5 more minutes in that eliminator match. And what happens is that MJF gets the microphone and he says, no, 5 minutes isn't enough. We'll be going till there's a fucking winner at Wembley. And the match officially restarts, and it's sudden death. No time limit whatsoever. It's sudden death. What happens after that? The match restarts. We get a bunch of roll-up reversals by both men. There's a bunch of roll-up reversals. Adam Cole knocks the referee out by accident. MJF is smiling. He grabs the chair. He throws the chair at Adam Cole, but then both men try to do the Eddie Guerrero. Adam Cole drops down, but then MJF has a chair. MJF puts the chair on his head. So this was so funny. So both men try to do the Eddie Guerrero, right? And they grab a chair. Both men just throw each other the chair. They throw each other the chair. But this was so fucking good and so creative by MJF. Whoever came up with this spot, whoever produced this match and came up with this spot is a fucking genius. So both men throw each other the chair. But what happens is, even though the referee's still down, Adam Cole throws the chair back at MJF, but then MJF doesn't throw back. He doesn't throw back, and instead, he puts the chair on his head and lays the fuck down. Great stuff. I loved that. And what happens is MJF goes for the roll-up, and we get a near fall. We get a thrust kick by MJF. MJF hits the heat sinker. We get a cover and a kick out. They are on the apron. Adam Cole goes for a German on the apron, but then Cole goes for the Panama Sunrise on the outside. Cole drags MJF into the ring. We get a cover by Cole, and MJF kicks the fuck out. Cole is on the middle rope for the Panama Sunrise, but then MJF escapes. By accident, he hits the Panama Sunrise on the referee. MJF digs in on his trunks, and he gets the Dynamite Diamond Ring, the one object that has helped MJF win his matches throughout the majority of his whole career. What happens? He gets the Dynamite Diamond Ring. Adam Cole is down. MJF has the ring, and he looks like he's about to hit Adam Cole, but MJF is questioning himself. He's questioning himself, and MJF decides not to do it. He takes off the ring, puts it back in his trunks, and what happens is Roderick Strong is behind him. And what happens is Roderick Strong comes in without the referee looking, hits a low blow on MJF. He hits the low blow on MJF. Adam Cole looks pissed. And then he goes to the top, but then Cole seizes the advantage, and he hits the Panama Sunrise. We get a boom by Cole. We get a cover by Cole, but when he goes for the cover, there is no referee. The referee is down. So what happens is the referee finally wakes back up, and he goes for one of the slowest counts you'll ever see in the wrestling business. He goes for the count, slowly counting 1, 2, and right as soon as he was about to go to 3, MJF kicks out, and the match is still on. So he kicks out at 2.99999. After that, Strong throws the belt to Adam Cole. He screams at Cole, saying that he is his best friend. Cole takes off his shirt, and Cole has the belt in his hands, and it looks like he is about to hit MJF. But Cole is crying. He does not do it. He says, I cannot do it. Roderick Strong is so pissed off that he leaves. But what happens is once Roderick Strong leaves, MJF is up. MJF ends up going for the inside cradle on Adam Cole. We get a cover 1, 2, 3. MJF retains the AEW World Championship by basically tricking Adam Cole. Not really tricking Adam Cole, but really gaining the advantage at the moment. So the match is over. And this is where the real storytelling happens. And this was fucking awesome. So what happens after that was MJF retains the belt. MJF is celebrating with his title. Adam Cole is crying. MJF says, Adam Cole's in the corner, just devastated about just the event that just transpired. MJF comes in and kind of just cheers him up, saying, it could have went either way. And he grabs the ROH belts. He grabs both ROH tag team titles. And what happens is that he gives his title to Adam Cole. And what happens is that once he gives one of the ROH titles to Adam Cole, Cole just snatches it away off the hand of MJF because Cole is just pissed. But what happens is that manages to piss off MJF. So that pisses off MJF. And what happens is MJF just screams, I thought we were friends. You know what? Fucking take it. He grabs the AEW World title, throws it to Adam Cole, and what happens is MJF turns around. He says, fucking take it, gives him the belt. MJF turns around and he offers a free shot to Adam Cole for Adam Cole to turn on MJF. And what happens is that Cole grabs the belt. MJF is offering the free shot by just pulling his arms up like this. And MJF, meanwhile, while he is literally offering the free shot, he just tells himself, I'm so fucking stupid. And what happens is that Roderick Strong is on the apron. He's on the apron screaming at Cole to do it. And he's just screaming Adam's name. Adam, do it! And what happens is Cole, instead of hitting MJF in anger, once again, Cole drops the belt. The same way MJF dropped the belt weeks ago after the FTR match on Collision. And what happened is that Adam Cole drops the belt. Adam Cole is emotional while Roderick Strong is screaming Adam's name furiously. Cole stares at MJF. They both hug it out with 80,000 strong, 81,000 strong at Wembley Stadium in unison. They both celebrate, hold up the AEW and ROH world titles or tag team titles. And All In, the biggest show in wrestling history, ends with Adam Cole and MJF still best friends and still friends until the next moment happens. And the show ends. I don't know what to say. You know, I tweeted this out immediately after the show is over. But I've always said you can't duplicate or replicate the Bloodline storyline. And that is very much true. Nobody will go as nearly as good as how the Sami Zayn Bloodline storyline was. But what you can do is create your own story. And that is exactly what AEW did with Adam Cole and MJF. I know I said that before, but I'll say this right here, man. I always denied that this was their Bloodline story, but this has gone to the Sami Zayn Bloodline levels. It really has. The amount of investment that the crowd had in all the twists and turns that were going on in this match was unlike anything that I've ever seen in my fucking life. It was that good. The main event itself told a phenomenal story. The psychology, everything about it was just out of this world. Everything that a main event needs to be on a pay-per-view. Everything that it needs to be. And the post-match angle that happened, we all thought a turn was going to happen, but instead, a turn did not happen. AEW is going to go forward with this story because they know it's still hot and they do not want to kill it off right now. And you know what? That was the right decision to make. Absolutely the right decision to make. This was amazing on all levels. Amazing, amazing, amazing on all levels. Everything about this was just, I'm speechless right now. Really was. Now, how are we going to go forward with this? They are still the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions. They're going to eventually drop those belts. Could them dropping the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles be the catalyst to them breaking up or splitting up? We have no idea. But the bigger question is, who is going to turn on who? Because I've said it earlier, but it's pretty obvious that MJF, it'd be pretty obvious that MJF would be the guy that turned. But it'd also be pretty obvious for Adam Cole to be the guy that turned. And if you really think about it, in my opinion, Adam Cole turning heel kind of doesn't make any sense. Because Adam Cole, this past January, came back from a career-ending injury. And once you come back from a career-ending injury, you will forever be a babyface. Forever be a babyface. And yes, it can be pretty predictable that MJF does turn heel in this whole storyline. But what AEW has succeeded was that they created a scenario in which they had both men tease potentially, like they had both men possibly have the potential of turning on one another. You, the viewer, just does not know who is going to turn on who. Hence, once the moment happens, it's going to be that much bigger, and it's going to come at an unexpected rate. It's going to come at an unexpected rate, the likes of which we have never seen before. And that is how good this angle was. This angle was fucking phenomenal. The storyline is amazing. And honestly, the beauty of this whole storyline is, once again, very similar to the Bloodline, It creates that unpredictability nature, but the only difference is that they tease turns by both men, but you just do not know who's going to turn heel, hence why the moment is just going to be that much greater once one person turns on the other. It's going to be that amazing. And honestly, I am here for it. This is the type of shit AEW has needed for a long, long, long time. They've always told stories. If you're one of those people that says AEW does not tell stories, you're clearly part of the problem and you don't watch the product, because they do. But they didn't have that story that really gravitated towards the audience and has them the way that they are invested in this particular story. This is that story right here. And it's working out very well, and it is very successful, as we've seen. Those are my thoughts on Adam Cole and MJF. This shit was fucking beautiful, and this shit was amazing. Those are my thoughts on that. But yeah, those were my all-in. That was my all-in at Wembley Stadium review right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast. 81,000 people at Wembley Stadium in fucking unison. What a phenomenal show. A phenomenal show on all levels. AEW definitely has proven themselves as a viable alternative, but not only that, they are just more than an alternative. They are here to stay. That is the biggest message that I can tell you about this whole show. That is the best message and the best thing that I can say about this whole show. They proved that they are just more than an alternative, that they made it to the dance. That's the real message. They have made it to the dance. And that is exactly what this show proved. All in. It was fucking phenomenal. It was amazing. And it was perfect on all levels. So yeah, that was my AEW All In London review. Of course, please like, subscribe, comment down below. Push that bell for notifications and be look out for more videos right here on the Wrestle Havoc podcast, in which we discuss everything in and outside of the squared circle. Make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And as the Virgin Referee would say, ring, ring, ring that damn bell for more notifications. And as always, it is Flamin' Ricky DeRays signing out. I'll see you guys later. Peace.